So you've just been in a discussion with other participants. What was that discussion about? Can you just sum that up for our viewers?
Well, basically about the question how much impact the Russian political propaganda of the Russian government, by, for example, via news media like Russia Today, has on the German opinion. And public opinion in Germany is not very much influenced by that. We know from our polls that maybe 20% of the population buy the stories, how they are spread by the Russian propaganda, and 80% don't.
Okay, and what was your position in this discussion?
Well, my part was to explain exactly that, because I'm the pollster in the round. I'm the one who did the surveys at the Allensbach Institute a couple of months ago, so I had the numbers we could discuss about.
And what was there anything like surprising or interesting you sort of took out of this discussion?
Well, of course, it was extraordinarily interesting numbers. Well, to me, one surprise was that we had little conflict, but a very constructive discussion. That doesn't happen very often. If you have podium discussions like that, they are often constructed in a way that you have different sides. And there is also from the media side an interest often to have conflict because that interests the people. This time, there were 4 experts on the podium and experts for different things, but not too much on a party side in a way that a real deeper conflict evolved. So we didn't have a classical political conflict discussion, but a very constructive discussion dealing with the question how to deal with the situation of the Russian propaganda. Inside views from Russia, I have heard for the first time in my life about how Russian young people inform themselves, not via the classical media but the internet, which is not surprising, but the way they use it is a bit different than in Germany. So for me, I learned a lot. It was very interesting and very constructive.
You just mentioned the different way of getting the information in Russia. What is different compared to Germany?
Well, in Germany, the young generation, on average, of course, there are always exceptions and groups, is much less interested in politics than the older people. And the older people use, as it is the case in Russia as well, of course, the classic media, television, newspapers. And the young generation uses the internet, but the young generation doesn't use classic journalistic content on the internet that much. If you ask the young people in Germany, where did you get your political information from? The answer is Facebook or the T-Online homepage and other sources of that kind. So they're not really interested in politics, and the political information they get is indirectly. And as I have learned just a few minutes ago, in Russia it's a little bit different because there seems to be a merge between internet usage and the usage of a couple of political journalistic sources which are independent from the official Russian propaganda. That's 100% of my knowledge, but that was new for me.
Okay, so and do you personally see a problem in this? In the fact that the young people in Germany aren't that interested in politics or get their information from social media?
Yes and no. On the one hand, it is a natural development in a country which is in a relatively good shape. And we tend to compare the behavior of the today's young generation with the behavior of the today's old generation. But the today's old generation, I mean everyone who is older than, say, 40, so including me, is heavily politicized. And we look at the 1970s and 1980s with a huge participation in elections, for example. Now we see it as less, and we complain, but there is no reason to complain because what we have with our young generation today is probably more normal than what we did and my parents did. So that's a good part of the news. On the other hand, of course, there is a certain point where it gets below the level which is desirable. I mean, if the election participation sinks more and more and beyond 50%, you have a problem of legitimation. And if the majority of younger people don't use journalistic contents anymore, don't use news in the narrow sense of the word, it means that we have a decrease of the level, of the intellectual level of information in the society. And that cannot be good in a democracy where the same people who don't know much about politics and are not interested in it finally have to decide about our government. So I would wish that there was a little bit more activity, but this does not mean that I'm dreaming of the old times of heavily politicized public spheres as we had them in my childhood. I remember the 1970s and 80s, which is prehistory for you, but that was a time where everything was political, and that's not good either.
Okay, so a very interesting topic. And then one question sort of towards the GCA. What are your impressions of this event? Are you enjoying your time here up till now?
I do. Though I never had contact to the association before, and I had few contact to your school, I'm a communication researcher from training. I studied communication research. I know this kind of conferences very well. I was very active in the World Association of Public Opinion Research, which is different in some respects, but this kind of conferences is very familiar to me. So I feel a bit home here.
That's very nice to hear. So thank you very much for your time, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your stay here.